Hello everyone. Before we start, make sure to like and subscribe to the channel and leave a comment with where you're from and what time you're watching. That way, YouTube will keep showing you stories just like this one. Now, let's begin. I've been driving long haul for about 7 years now. Most nights, it's just me, the road, and whatever audiobook I'm burning through that week. You get used to the isolation, the miles of nothing, the way headlights can play tricks on you when you've been staring at asphalt for 12 hours straight. But some nights stick with you. This happened about 2 years ago. I was hauling freight from Salt Lake City to Sacramento, a route I'd driven dozens of times before. It was late August, middle of the night, and I was on Highway 50 cutting through Nevada. If you've never driven that stretch, they don't call it the loneliest road in America. For nothing, it's just empty. Miles and miles of desert, sagebrush, and darkness so thick it feels like you're driving through a void. It was around 2 in the morning when I noticed my fuel gauge creeping toward empty. I'd miscalculated. The next town, with a proper gas station, was still 80-something miles away, and I wasn't sure I'd make it. My gut tightened. Running out of fuel out there, in the middle of nowhere, in the dead of night, that's the kind of mistake that can get you killed. Then I saw it, a faint glow up ahead, just off the highway. A rest stop. I almost missed it. The sign was so faded you could barely read it, and only one streetlight was working, flickering on and off like it was struggling to stay alive. But my GPS confirmed it was an official state rest area. I didn't have much choice. I needed to stretch my legs, use the bathroom, and give myself a few minutes to figure out if I could make it to the next station. I pulled the rig into the parking lot. The place was completely deserted. Just a small bathroom building, a couple of parking spaces, and that one dying streetlight casting weak, yellowish light across cracked pavement. There were no other vehicles, no signs of life. The air was still and heavy, the kind of stillness that makes you hyper-aware of every sound you make. I grabbed my flashlight from the glove box and stepped out. The gravel crunched under my boots, way too loud in the silence. I locked the truck, made sure of it, checked the handle twice, and walked toward the bathroom. The building was small, concrete, and looked like it hadn't been maintained in years. The door creaked when I pushed it open. Inside, the smell hit me immediately. Rust, stale water, something damp and rotting. The kind of smell that makes you want to hold your breath. Fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, one of them flickering in sync with the streetlight outside. There were 3 stalls. The first 2 had doors that hung crooked on their hinges. The third door was slightly open, swaying back and forth like someone had just walked out of it. But there was no breeze, no reason for it to be moving. I stood there for a second, watching it. Then I shook my head. You're being paranoid, I told myself. It's just an old door. I used the bathroom as fast as I could. The whole time I had this crawling feeling on the back of my neck, like I wasn't alone. I kept glancing at that swaying stall door. It didn't stop moving. When I went to wash my hands, I heard it. Footsteps. Slow, deliberate crunching on gravel outside. My heart kicked up. I turned off the faucet and listened. The footsteps continued. Steady, unhurried, then stopped. I moved to the small window above the sink and looked out. The parking lot was empty. My truck sat right where I'd left it. Nothing moved. But something was wrong. My truck's cab door was open, just slightly ajar, the interior light glowing faintly. I know I locked it. I double-checked. My pulse hammered in my ears. I grabbed my flashlight and pushed out of the bathroom, moving quickly across the lot. My eyes darted around, scanning the edges of the light, the darkness beyond. That's when I saw him, a figure, standing at the far edge of the parking lot, just outside the reach of the streetlight, completely still, facing my truck. I froze. "Hey!" I called out. My voice sounded weak, swallowed by the desert. "You need something?" No response. The figure didn't move, didn't even twitch. I kept my flashlight aimed in that direction as I walked toward my truck, never taking my eyes off him. My hand fumbled for the door handle. I yanked it open and checked inside. Nothing was disturbed. My stuff was right where I'd left it, but there was a smell inside the cab now. Cigarette smoke. Strong and recent. I don't smoke. Never have. I looked back toward the figure. He was gone. Just gone. The parking lot was empty again. No footsteps, no movement. Just silence and that sickly yellow light. I didn't wait. I threw myself into the cab, locked every door, started the engine, and slammed it into gear. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely grip the wheel. As I pulled out of the rest stop, my headlights swept across the side of the bathroom building. That's when I saw it, spray-painted in large, faded letters across the concrete. "Don't stop here." My blood turned to ice. I checked the rearview mirror. The figure was standing in the middle of the road now, just standing there. Motionless. Watching me drive away. I floored it. I didn't look back. I didn't stop. I drove 90 miles on fumes, white-knuckling the wheel, praying I'd make it to the next town. When I finally pulled into a gas station just outside of Fallon, the sun was starting to rise, and I was drenched in sweat. The attendant was a middle-aged guy with a tired face. I tried to act normal as I paid for the gas, but I couldn't help myself. "Hey, you know anything about that rest stop back on 50? The one about 90 miles east?" His face changed, went pale. He looked at me for a long moment, then shook his head. "People go missing on that stretch," he said quietly. "We don't talk about that place." He didn't say anything else, and I didn't ask. I never stopped at that rest stop again. I go out of my way to avoid it now. But here's the thing that still keeps me up at night. I looked it up online about a week later, searched for anything about a rest stop on Highway 50, reports of missing people, anything. I found one forum post from 5 years ago, a trucker asking if anyone else had seen the man who stands in the dark at that rest stop. No replies, just that one post. Then nothing. I still don't know what that figure wanted, or if it was even human. But I know one thing for sure. I got out of there, and not everyone does. If you're still listening, you probably enjoy stories like this. A like or a comment helps keep them alive. I want to tell you about the time I broke my own rule. The one rule I swore I'd never break. Never pick up hitchhikers. Not ever. Not for any reason. It was mid-January, about 3 years ago. I was driving a delivery van cross-country, Wyoming to Colorado, a route I'd done 100 times. It was the graveyard shift, around 4 in the morning, and I was on I-80 between Rawlins and Laramie. The weather had been fine when I started, but a snowstorm rolled in out of nowhere. Within 20 minutes, the roads were slick with ice, and visibility dropped to almost nothing. I slowed way down, hazards on, gripping the wheel. The highway was deserted, just me in the snow and the dark. That's when I saw her, a woman, standing on the shoulder of the highway, thumb out. She was wearing jeans and a thin hoodie. No coat, no gloves, nothing. In the middle of a snowstorm, in Wyoming, in January. I drove past her at first, told myself it wasn't my problem. Company policy was strict, no passengers. But I couldn't stop thinking about her. It was below freezing. She'd die out there. I slowed down, pulled onto the shoulder, and backed up until I was alongside her. I cracked the window. "You okay?" She nodded. Didn't say anything at first, just stared at me with this blank expression. Then quietly, "Car broke down, few miles back. Phone's dead. Just need a ride to the next town." I hesitated. Every instinct told me not to do it, but she looked desperate, and I couldn't just leave her out there. "All right," I said. "Get in." She opened the door and climbed into the passenger seat without another word. I turned the heat up, figuring she'd be freezing, but she didn't react. Didn't rub her hands together, didn't shiver. Just sat there, staring straight ahead. The smell hit me a few seconds later. Gasoline, faint but definitely there. "Where exactly did your car break down?" I asked, trying to make conversation. She pointed vaguely behind us. "Back there." I glanced in the rearview mirror. The road stretched out empty behind us. No car, no lights, nothing. "How far back?" I pressed. "Back there," she repeated. Same flat tone. I didn't like this. Something felt wrong. I kept driving, but my hands were tense on the wheel. I tried to make small talk, asked her name, where she was headed. She didn't answer, just stared straight ahead. After a minute, she started humming. Quietly. Some kind of lullaby, slow and eerie. My skin crawled. I checked the rearview mirror again. Still no sign of a broken-down car, no tire tracks, nothing. "What's your name?" I asked again, more firmly this time. She didn't answer, just kept humming. I saw the next exit coming up. A truck stop, lights blazing. I decided I'd drop her there. Let someone else deal with this. "All right," I said. "There's a gas station up here. I'll drop you off. You can call someone from there." The humming stopped. She turned her head slowly to look at me. Her eyes were empty, like there was nothing behind them. "You shouldn't have stopped," she said. My heart slammed into my throat. "What?" She didn't say anything else. Just stared at me with that hollow expression. I took the exit faster than I should have, tires skidding slightly on the ice. The truck stop was busy. Semis parked everywhere, bright lights, people moving around. Safe. I pulled into a parking spot and threw the van into park. "This is your stop," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. She didn't move. "Get out," I said, louder this time. Still nothing. She just sat there, staring at me. I couldn't take it anymore. I got out, walked around to her side, and yanked the door open. "Get out, now." She stepped out slowly, never breaking eye contact. She stood there in the parking lot, and for the first time since I'd picked her up, her expression changed. She smiled. Wide, unnatural. I didn't wait. I slammed the door, got back in, locked everything, and peeled out of there. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely hold the wheel. I kept checking the rearview mirror, half expecting to see her standing in the road again. But she was just standing there in the truck stop parking lot, watching me drive away. I didn't stop again until I reached Laramie. I went straight to a coffee shop, needed to calm down. While I was there, I saw the news playing on a TV behind the counter. A breaking report. A woman wanted for assault had escaped from a facility near Rawlins. They showed her photo. It was her. I didn't tell anyone I'd given her a ride. What would I even say? That I'd broken protocol and picked up a fugitive? That she'd somehow known I would stop? But here's what I can't stop thinking about. She said, "You shouldn't have stopped." Not "thank you." Not "I appreciate it." You shouldn't have stopped. Like she was warning me, or like she knew something I didn't. I still drive that route, and I still see hitchhikers sometimes, standing on the side of the road in the middle of the night. But I never stop. Not anymore. Because sometimes, when I'm driving alone in the dark, I see that smile in my rearview mirror. Just for a second. Then it's gone. I don't stay in motels anymore. Not the cheap ones, anyway. Not after what happened in Oklahoma. It was about 18 months ago. I'd been driving for 16 hours straight, Texas to Missouri, hauling electronics. I was exhausted, My eyes were burning, and I'd started seeing things that weren't there. Shadows darting across the road, headlights that disappeared when I blinked. I needed sleep, badly. I was somewhere in rural Oklahoma, just off Route 40, when I saw the sign, a flickering neon Motel logo attached to a truck stop. Half the letters were burnt out. It read, VAC, NCY. The parking lot had a few semis scattered around, but the motel section looked completely deserted. I almost kept driving, but I was dead on my feet. I pulled in. The front office smelled like stale coffee and cigarettes. An older man sat behind the desk, barely looking up when I walked in. His face was deeply lined, expressionless. "Need a room?" he muttered. "Yeah, just for a few hours." He slid a key across the counter. "Room 7. "Quiet night," he said. "You'll sleep fine." I paid cash, took the key, and walked out to the motel. The room was at the far end of the building, last door in the row. The paint was peeling, and the number 7 hung crooked on the door. I unlocked it and stepped inside. The room was exactly what you'd expect. Dated, musty, stained carpet that had seen better decades. The TV was one of those old tube models, and when I turned it on, all I got was static. But the bed looked clean enough, and that's all I cared about. I locked the door, fastened the chain latch, and checked the window. It faced an empty field and a dark stretch of woods beyond. Nothing out there but darkness. I lay down, exhausted, but I couldn't shake this uneasy feeling. The room felt wrong. Too quiet, like the silence itself was watching me. Around 2 in the morning, I heard footsteps in the hallway. Slow, heavy boots. They stopped right outside my door. I froze, staring at the door. A full minute passed. Complete silence. Then the footsteps resumed, walking away. I tried to convince myself it was just another guest, but my heart was pounding. 20 minutes later, I heard 3 soft knocks on the door. Deliberate, measured. I didn't move, didn't answer. The knocks came again. Same rhythm. I crept to the peephole and looked out. The hallway was empty. The knocking stopped. I went back to bed, but I couldn't relax. Around 3 in the morning, I heard a new sound. Scratching, coming from the wall next to me. The wall that connected to room 6. It was rhythmic, persistent, like fingernails dragging across drywall. I pounded on the wall. "Knock it off!" The scratching stopped immediately. For a few minutes, there was silence. Then I heard it, whispering. Soft, unintelligible, coming from right outside my window. I pulled the curtain back slightly. No one was there. Just the empty field and the dark tree line in the distance. But the whispering continued. It sounded like it was circling the building. That's when I decided I was done. I wasn't staying another minute. I grabbed my stuff, unlocked the door, and stepped into the hallway. The lights were flickering, on and off, on and off. I walked past room 6. The door was wide open. The room inside was pitch black, so dark I couldn't see anything, but I felt it. Someone was standing just inside, right at the edge of the doorway, watching me. I didn't look. I just walked faster. When I reached the front office, the clerk was gone. Just an empty desk and that same TV playing nothing but static. I pushed out into the parking lot and got into my van. My hands were shaking as I started the engine. I glanced back at room 7. The curtain, the one I'd closed, was now wide open. A shadowy figure stood inside, pressed against the glass. I didn't wait to see what it would do. I floored it. I drove until the sun came up, until I was miles away from that place. When I finally stopped for coffee, I looked up the motel online. The reviews were unsettling, strange noises, feeling watched. One review from a year ago simply said, "Don't stay in room 7." A few weeks later, I tried to find the place on Google Maps. I wanted to see if there were more reviews, more warnings, but the motel wasn't listed. Just an empty lot where it should have been. I don't know if that place was haunted. I don't know if something worse was happening there. But I know this. Whatever was in room 6 wasn't human, and it knew I was there. I want to tell you about the night I lost time. It happened in Montana on Highway 12 near Lolo Pass. I was making a sunrise delivery run, hauling medical supplies from Missoula to Lewiston. The forecast had been clear. No rain, no snow, perfect driving conditions. But around 5 in the morning, a fog rolled in. And I mean rolled in. 1 second, the road was clear. The next, I couldn't see 10 feet in front of me. I slowed to a crawl, hazard lights on. The fog was thick, unnaturally thick, like driving through a solid wall of white. My headlights barely cut through it. I'd driven through fog before, but this was different. This felt wrong. The highway was completely empty. No other vehicles, no lights, just me in the fog. My GPS cut out. The screen showed a spinning loading icon, then went dark. I tried my phone. No signal. I was completely on my own. I kept driving, relying on the road markers and my instincts. But the fog kept getting thicker, denser. It felt like it was pressing in on the van, like it had weight. Then my radio started crackling. I hadn't even turned it on. Static filled the cab, and underneath it, voices. Faint, garbled, not quite words. I switched stations. Same thing. Every channel, just static and those distorted voices. I turned the radio off. The silence that followed was worse. Then suddenly I saw brake lights ahead. Another vehicle stopped in the middle of the road. I slowed down, honking my horn. No response. I got closer. It was an old sedan, engine still running, driver's door wide open. Keys in the ignition, no one inside. I sat there for a moment, staring at the empty car. Then I called out, "Hello? Anyone there?" Nothing, just fog and silence. Where did the driver go? There was nowhere to go. We were in the middle of a mountain pass. No buildings, no side roads, just forest and fog. Every instinct told me to leave. I carefully drove around the car and kept going. I checked my rearview mirror. The car was gone. The road behind me was completely empty. My heart stopped. That didn't make sense. It had been right there. I'd just driven past it. Then, just as suddenly as it came, the fog lifted. It didn't fade gradually. It just vanished, like someone flipped a switch. I was on a completely different stretch of highway. A road sign ahead read, "Missoula, 15 miles. That was impossible. I should have been 60 miles away. I'd been driving for over an hour. I checked my odometer. The miles didn't match. It was like I'd skipped an entire section of road. I checked the time. It was 6:30 a.m. An hour and a half had passed, but it felt like 15 minutes. I pulled over, my hands shaking. I tried to piece together what had just happened. I had no memory of driving that distance. No memory of passing towns or turnoffs, just fog. I looked at my GPS history later. It showed a straight line from where I entered the fog to where I came out, but the timeline didn't make sense. The distance didn't match the time. I finished the delivery. I didn't tell anyone what happened. Who would believe me? But I researched Highway 12 afterward. I found scattered reports, forum posts, stories about lost time on that stretch of road, vehicles appearing and disappearing, strange fog. One post stood out. It said, "If you see the white fog on 12, don't stop. Don't look at anything in it. Just keep driving and don't think about where you are. You'll come out the other side, but you won't remember how." I still drive that route sometimes. The fog hasn't come back, but I'm always watching for it, always ready, because I'm terrified of the day it does return, and I'm even more terrified of what might be waiting inside it. Most nights, it's just me and the highway. Miles of asphalt, darkness and silence. But some nights, I'm not so sure I'm alone out there. Some nights I feel like I'm being watched, like something is following me just outside the reach of my headlights. I still drive graveyard shifts. I still cross state lines, but I'm more careful now. I check rest stops before I stop. I never pick up hitchhikers. I avoid motels that feel wrong, because out there in the space between towns, in the dead hours before sunrise, anything can happen. And no one will ever know. Thanks for listening. If you made it through the darkness, you're braver than most. Retry.